People have always turned life's conflicts into music, and hip-hop is no different. For years, 50 Cent and Diddy have been locked in a notorious feud, with 50 often positioned as the one dominating the narrative. But after Diddy's recent legal win, whispers began surfacing in the hip-hop community. Is 50 genuinely going after Diddy? Or is he simply keeping his name buzzing in the rap world by attaching it to Diddy's headlines? The tension has always carried a dangerous undertone. To many in the streets, the beef wasn't just entertainment, it stirred real fear. Rumors circulated that the rivalry stretched far deeper than what fans saw in public. Beneath the headlines, an unsettling story began to form. Some underground voices suggested that, back in the early 2000s, Diddy may have secretly cooperated with the police, pointing fingers at 50 Cent to shield himself and protect his empire. According to those same whispers, Diddy allegedly even helped law enforcement wiretap 50's phone, setting off a chain of consequences that dragged others into chaos. Still, it's important to note that 50 Cent was never the original target of federal investigations. His name became tangled in a much larger crackdown. At the time, federal authorities were already zeroing in on Murder Inc., Irv Gotti, Ja Rule, and anyone even remotely connected to the Supreme Team. In that era, street loyalty was sacred. Nobody wanted to betray their crew, and silence was the unspoken law. With no insider cooperation, investigators searched for leverage elsewhere. This is when speculation about Diddy's possible role in helping authorities gained traction. To understand why these theories took root, you have to look back at 1999. That year, Diddy's career nearly crumbled after a high-profile nightclub shooting in Manhattan involving him, his then-girlfriend, Jennifer Lopez, and rapper Shine. The violent incident spiraled quickly and ended with Diddy in handcuffs. For many, this moment marked the beginning of the narrative that Diddy may have struck deals behind the scenes to protect both himself and Bad Boy Records.
Diddy wasn't teaching Mace the business. You understand? He was using Mace as other artists to write rhymes on other people, write songs.
Diddy's legal troubles in the late 90s were nothing to take lightly. He faced charges of bribery and illegal gun possession, the kind of accusations that could have landed him in prison for years. Everyone watching knew what was at stake. If he went down, his career and Bad Boy Records would likely collapse with him. That reality alone meant he couldn't afford to slip, not even once. When the infamous nightclub shooting made headlines, both Diddy and his then-girlfriend Jennifer Lopez were arrested, though he was quickly released on bail. The case dragged on, but in the end, he managed to walk free. Still, freedom didn't mean safety. The spotlight stayed on him, and he understood that another brush with the law, especially anything tied to gangs or street dealings, would have spelled the end of everything he built. This is where the rumors grew louder. People on the streets claimed that when investigators came looking for leverage, they may have asked Diddy for information in exchange for protection. To some, it looked like a choice between survival and self-destruction. Adding to the speculation was another twist: whispers that 50 Cent himself had once been approached by the police to cooperate. Depending on who you asked, he either refused because he had too much to lose or because his loyalty to the code of the streets wouldn't allow him to play informant. Whether true or not, this made the theory that Diddy stepped into that role feel all the more believable to those who wanted to connect the dots.
Sometimes it hurts.
Right.
It hurts people and they don't want to hear that shit, but I'm trying to tell you, ask me, could he take me shopping? And it me up because I'm looking like, what? Just like, I want to take you shopping.
It's worth remembering that 50 Cent wasn't exactly spotless himself. Long before whispers of wiretaps or speculation about Diddy's involvement with the feds, Curtis Jackson was already locked in a dangerous dance with the streets. His beef with the Supreme Team wasn't just a rap storyline, it was a real-world feud with people who had the kind of power, money, and reputation that could silence almost anyone. For 50, that conflict nearly cost him his life and forced him to retreat from the spotlight for nearly 2 years. To understand the weight of what happened, you have to look at who the Supreme Team really was. In the late 80s and 90s, Kenneth Supreme McGriff and his crew had built a reputation in Queens that mixed street legend with outright fear. They weren't just hustlers, they were organizers, businessmen, and enforcers who knew how to move in silence. In Queens, Supreme's name carried the kind of weight that could clear a block. He had survived the crack era, built connections across hip-hop, and even dabbled in the record business. By the time 50 Cent started bubbling on the mixtape circuit, Supreme wasn't just a street figure, he was a looming shadow that everybody in New York's rap game knew not to cross. But 50 Cent wasn't built to follow the rules. In 2000, he recorded Ghetto Quran, a track that would become one of the most controversial pieces of his career. While most rappers stayed cryptic, using metaphors or coded language to avoid exposing anyone directly, 50 took the opposite route. He spoke names. He laid out stories. He painted vivid portraits of hustlers, drug lords, and power players from Queens as if he were writing an unfiltered history book of the streets. For the rap world, it was groundbreaking, raw, and fearless. For the streets, it was something else entirely, a violation of the code. One name in particular made the track explosive: Supreme. When 50 uttered Supreme's name in Ghetto Quran, it wasn't just a lyric, it was a signal. To rap fans, it might have seemed like an edgy move, the kind of thing that gave the track authenticity. But for people living the life he was describing, it crossed the line into what's called dry snitching. The rule of the streets was simple and uncompromising. You don't talk about business that isn't yours, and you never put names to crimes. In a world built on secrecy and loyalty, 50's decision to pull back the curtain was seen as reckless and dangerous. The song never even got the chance to be officially released before it caused chaos. It leaked early through mixtapes, a format that 50 had already mastered as his weapon of choice to build buzz and reach the streets directly. But this time, the leak worked against him. Supreme heard it before the public could even debate its artistry. To him, it wasn't music, it was disrespect, exposure, and betrayal. And in the rules of the game, betrayal demanded payback. Once Supreme caught wind of the track, everything in 50's life began to shift. Friends became cautious. Industry insiders kept their distance, and the streets buzzed with whispers about what might come next. For young rappers, beefs were often lyrical sparring matches, a way to prove dominance on the mic. But this wasn't about bars, it was about life and death. Supreme had the reputation and resources to make problems disappear, and the mention of his name on Ghetto Quran was seen as an unforgivable offense. The code of the streets wasn't written down, but it was understood by everyone who lived it. No matter how high you climbed in music, movies, or business, if you came from the block, you lived by the block's rules. And one of those rules was crystal clear: snitches don't survive. Whether 50 meant it that way or not, his lyrics branded him as someone who had aired out business that wasn't his to tell, and once that perception took hold, there was no escaping the consequences. The fallout was swift and brutal. In May of 2000, 50 Cent was outside his grandmother's house in South Jamaica, Queens, a place that was supposed to be safe, away from the chaos of the streets. But safety was an illusion. As he stood outside, gunmen approached and opened fire. 9 bullets ripped through his body. He was hit in his hands, legs, chest, and even his face. Doctors didn't expect him to live. The shooting wasn't just an attack, it was a statement against all odds. 50 survived. His recovery became part of his mythology, the story of the man who took 9 bullets and lived to tell it. But survival came at a cost. For months, he was in and out of hospitals, relearning how to use his body, pushing through pain that most people could never imagine. His jaw had to be wired shut, his voice changed forever, and the industry turned its back on him. Record labels dropped him. DJs stopped spinning his tapes. Collaborators distanced themselves. The man who had been poised to break through as one of rap's next stars was suddenly radioactive. Behind closed doors, everyone knew who had allegedly ordered the hit. The streets pointed fingers at Supreme. It fit the timeline, the motive, and the message. Whether or not Supreme himself gave the order, the rumor was enough to cement the story in hip-hop folklore. Ghetto Quran had been the spark, and the bullets were the answer. For 50, the shooting was more than a physical attack, it was a symbolic exile. He had broken the code, and the punishment was clear. No one wanted to associate with him because doing so could mean getting caught in the crossfire. In the music industry, especially in New York at the time, relationships with powerful street figures mattered. Supreme wasn't just a name on a track, he had ties to Murder Inc. and Ja Rule, who were dominating the charts. Aligning with 50, after he crossed, Supreme was seen as career suicide. In that sense, 50's survival wasn't just miraculous, it was defiant. He had been given what the streets considered a death sentence, yet he lived. He had been blackballed by the industry, yet he refused to quit. His 2 years in hiding weren't wasted, they were years spent plotting, perfecting and sharpening the edge that would later define him. By the time he returned to the public eye, he was no longer just another Queens rapper trying to break out. He was the man who had faced the street's ultimate punishment and lived to rap about it. Looking back, Ghetto Quran was more than just a song. It was a moment that revealed the razor-thin line between hip-hop as entertainment and hip-hop as a reflection of real-life crime, loyalty, and betrayal. 450. It was both his curse and his crown, the track that nearly got him killed but also solidified his reputation as someone too raw, too fearless, and too unfiltered to play by anyone else's rules. And while fans debate whether he was reckless or brave, one thing is certain: that song set off a chain of events that defined the rest of his career. The bullets didn't just scar his body, they became part of his brand. The mythology of 50 Cent. From that moment forward, he wasn't just rapping about survival. He was survival.
Full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted. I went and I sought out professional help. I had to go into therapy. Going to rehab. Had to ask God for his mercy and grace. I'm so sorry.
There was never a police report filed on the shooting that nearly ended 50 Cent's life. But the streets didn't need paperwork to read the message. In that world, snitches don't walk away unpunished. Against all odds, 50 survived, but the aftermath almost destroyed his career. DJs stopped spinning his mixtapes, his record label cut ties, and industry connections evaporated overnight. Even Diddy, who had been working with him before the incident, went silent. That silence stung. Diddy had built his name on loyalty, especially to East Coast artists fighting their way through rough seasons. Yet, when 50 needed support, there was nothing, no statement, no gesture, no sign of solidarity. Some fans brushed it off as self-preservation. Maybe Diddy just didn't want to risk being blackballed by association, but others started whispering something darker. Maybe he had already cut a deal with the law and distancing himself was part of the play. As 50 fought to rebuild, the police zeroed in on a bigger target: the Supreme Team, Murder Inc., and their affiliates like Ja Rule. Federal agents needed evidence airtight enough to build a case. But no one inside the organization was willing to flip. Then, almost out of nowhere, evidence surfaced: wiretapped calls, secret conversations, and financial trails. The kind of information only an insider could deliver. Phone taps exposed everything from money laundering to talk of contracts on people's lives. And buried in those recordings was 50's name, dragged into conversations he didn't even seem to belong in. Too many, it smelled like a setup. But who was behind it? Nobody could say for sure. What fueled the rumors further was the strange shift in Diddy's own circumstances. First came his silence after 50's shooting. Then, as the wiretap theories spread, Diddy's own legal battles seemed to evaporate. Cases that once threatened his career were suddenly dismissed. On top of that, the people around him began to change. Almost as if he was repositioning himself in the industry with a cleaner slate.
Got the same outfit.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
that's a nice shirt. That's a nice shirt. All right, so when he said the shopping line, in real life, what did you say?
I said, let me get away from him. Because he was like, yo, you hot now. Now we gotta hang out now. Like, hang out. Yeah. He said, I don't know, maybe I take you shopping and I get you some flash and you can give me the hood shit. And I was looking and I was like, let me just move away from him.
As the streets burned hotter with police crackdowns, Diddy began steering his image in a very different direction. He stepped back from the gritty side of hip-hop that had defined his early years and leaned heavily into business. Brand deals started rolling in: CROC, MTV, and other corporate partnerships that painted him less as a street mogul and more as a polished entrepreneur. Too many. This shift felt intentional. While Ja Rule, 50 Cent, and the Supreme Team were facing indictments, raids, and mounting losses, Diddy seemed untouchable, quietly stacking wins and securing his future. But the timing didn't sit right with everyone. The very moves that elevated him in the corporate world also fueled the growing narrative that he hadn't just left the streets behind, he had traded them in. And that's how the snitch label began to stick.
Diddy wasn't teaching Mace the business. You understand? He was using Mace as other artists to write rhymes on other people, write songs on other people's albums, on his album, and taking their talents and stealing their public.
Speculation has long surrounded the way Diddy's legal troubles seemed to vanish and how his inner circle shifted. To fans, it looked too clean to be explained only by a team of skilled attorneys. The rumor was that Diddy had sacrificed his old associates, feeding the police information in exchange for his freedom and the survival of Bad Boy Records. No solid evidence has ever proven that claim, but, for many, the suspicion never left. And once 50 Cent emerged from that dark chapter, his disdain for Diddy became louder, sharper, and impossible to ignore. Murder Inc., battered by investigations and federal charges, struggled to stay afloat as time passed. Their empire weakened, and their grip on the industry slipped. 50, on the other hand, clawed his way back and has never missed an opportunity to remind the world of his contempt for Diddy. Fast forward to today, and Diddy himself is facing the most serious allegations of his career, lawsuits tied to sexual abuse, trafficking, racketeering, and money laundering. While the accusations stunned much of the industry, one person seemed to take genuine satisfaction in watching the downfall play out: 50 Cent. From the moment the lawsuit hit the headlines, he has made a spectacle of mocking Diddy, turning social media into his stage. Whether it's posting AI-generated memes, dropping relentless commentary online, or even producing a docuseries titled "Did Diddy Do It?", 50 has relished every moment of his rival's humiliation. The label of world's #1 Diddy hater fits him almost too perfectly. Still, the story has taken a twist. Despite the laundry list of charges, Diddy now faces only 5. With much of the case stripped back, the possibility of acquittal is higher than many expected. His supporters are celebrating the chance that he might walk free again. Others, however, are furious. And sitting right at the top of that list is 50 Cent. For months, he has used the trial as fuel to keep his feud alive. But with the tide turning in Diddy's favor, the self-proclaimed petty king of rap may soon have to find a new way to keep the fire of his vendetta burning.